This session is about pricing in MM or purchasing. We will outline the key elements of the condition technique and then look at the configuration under IMG and execute the different pricing functionalities. So this is the overall picture of how pricing determination works in MM. When you create a pricing relevant transaction like a purchase order or a contract release order or a delivery schedule, the system searches for existing info records and documents for valid conditions and adopts any it finds as default values in the new document. The price determination process is carried out in a number of steps. So this is the first step. In this step, the relevant calculation schema or the pricing procedure is determined. Then the system searches for condition records for all condition types listed in this calculation schema. The next step is finding the access sequence. Using the access sequence that is assigned to a condition type, the search for condition records. A condition record is the actual price. So the search for condition record is carried out in the order specified in the access sequence. So an access sequence may have several condition tables: contract item, plant info record, other info record. So the system will first try to find a condition table that corresponds to the contract item. That step here. If it does not find anything, it goes to the next access, which is the plant info record, and here it finds the price and returns this price to the purchase order. So this is the overall process for determining a price in a pricing relevant MM transaction. We will now go into detail in each of these steps. So here's a quick look at how a schema is determined for a standard purchase order. These schemas are set up in customizing and their determination is also done in customizing. For a standard PO, you have different options. The first option is to assign a generic schema, and this RM0000 schema would be valid across the board, across all the purchase orgs and across all the vendors and vendor schema groups. The second option is to define the assignment of a calculation schema dependent on a schema group for one or more purchase orgs. And the final option is to define a schema for a combination of purchase org schema group and vendor schema group. And the system tries to find the most specific schema and returns that for doing the pricing calculation. So in this example, our purchase order has the purchase org 1000 and vendor A. And so the system tries to find the most specific schema for this. Now this vendor A belongs to the vendor schema group 02, and so 02 is here and this is blank, which means it's relevant for all the purchase orgs, and hence the system returns this calculation schema. Schema groups are defined in customizing. The assignment of purchasing organizations to schema groups is also made in customizing, and we'll have a quick look at that. Whereas the assignment of a vendor to a schema group must be made in the relevant vendor master record. So let's quickly go into the system. We go to customizing, which is transaction SPRO. Then we go to SAP reference IMG. And we need to look for materials management here, purchasing, and under purchasing it's under conditions that all the pricing relevant settings are done. So here we have this define price determination process, and under this define schema determination. So if we look at the documentation, you find that for standard POs, how's the customizing done for stock transport orders and for market price determination. So each of these involves a slightly different customizing setting, as we will see here shortly. So the first one is determine calculation schema for standard POs. So we double click on this, and this is as per what we saw on the slide. You've got the purchasing group specific schema, and then the vendor group schema, and then the actual procedure. So if you go to the stock transport orders, you'll see that the settings are slightly different, and the procedure is determined based on the purchase org schema group, the document type, and the supplying plant. A condition type is a representation in the system of some aspect of your daily pricing activities. You can define a different condition type for each kind of price, discount, or surcharge that occurs in your business transactions. There are condition types for the gross price, various discounts and surcharges, freight charges, or fixed costs in the standard system. Condition types are differentiated broadly using the condition class and more finely using the condition category. The condition category has various control functions. For example, the condition category U for precious metal discounts and surcharges causes a new price determination process to be carried out at the time of goods receipt, and condition category E for cash discount causes the discount to be derived from the terms of payment. The calculation type determines how the system calculates the actual prices. For example, the system can calculate a price as a fixed amount or as a percentage based on quantity, volume, or weight. A discount or surcharge can be a percentage of the gross price, a fixed amount, or a quantity-dependent amount. A condition table defines the combination of fields, that's the key, that identifies an individual condition record. A condition record is how the system stores the specific condition data or prices that you enter in the system. For example, when you enter the price for a material or a special discount for a vendor, you create an individual condition record. A condition table consists of one or more condition keys and a data part. The data part contains a number that references the record in another table. In the standard system, several predefined condition tables exist. You can change and maintain the condition tables in the standard system. You can also create new condition tables to meet the needs of your specific implementation. You create and maintain condition tables in customizing. The actual condition records are stored in several transparent tables. An example of KONP table is given here. This table is used to store time-dependent conditions. An access sequence is a search strategy that the system uses to find valid data for a particular condition type. It determines the sequence in which the system searches for data. The access sequence consists of one or more accesses. The sequence of the accesses establishes which condition records have priority over others. The accesses tell the system where to look first, second, and so on until it finds a valid condition record. A condition type must have an access sequence assigned to it if you want to maintain conditions with their own validity periods. For example, the condition type PB00. In the case of gross price, you can specify that the system is first to search for a plant-specific price, and then secondly to search for a general cross-plant price only if it cannot find a plant-specific price. The exclusive indicator controls whether the system stops searching for a record after the first successful access for a condition type within an access sequence. In other words, the search for further valid entries in other condition tables is interrupted if an access was successful and a relevant entry was found. So here, if you've maintained condition records against both these condition tables, if the system finds the record successfully for the first table, it will stop here and return the value without going to the next step. Finally, all this comes together in the form of a calculation schema that is set up in customizing. A calculation schema or a pricing procedure groups together all of the condition types that play a part in calculating the price. So here are different condition types that constitute the calculation schema. The schema sets out the order in which condition types are taken into account in the calculation. In addition, it also specifies a couple of other things. For example, which subtotals are arrived at, condition types for which subtotals are calculated, to what extent the price determination process is carried out manually, the basis upon which the system calculates percentage discounts and surcharges, the order in which the condition types are taken into account in the calculation, which requirements must be satisfied in order for a certain condition type to be taken into account. So let's have a quick look at the system to see these individual components of pricing and how they all come together in the form of a calculation schema. So now let's go back to customizing, and this is where define calculation schema. We can actually see what a schema actually looks like in customizing. So we go to a standard schema and to control data, and here's where we see the different condition types and the order in which they are executed under this schema. And we see several other parameters, whether this is a manual condition or system determined, whether it's a mandatory condition is required, and if it doesn't exist, then the system will throw an error, and some other control parameters. So these requirements enable you to write your own code to influence how the pricing schema operates. So we can have a quick look. So if you go here and you can go to source text, the system will bring up the actual code behind this requirement number 10. So this is the code that the system executes when this schema is run and that specific condition type is accessed. So we go back, we do not change any data, and this is the condition type tab. So here you can look at what a condition type looks like. So we go to our standard PB00, gross price. So this is what a condition type looks like in the system. You have the condition class, the calculation type, the condition category, etc. And there is a whole lot of parameters that can influence how this condition type behaves. And here's the access sequence that's assigned to this. So if you go to records for access, it will show us the actual condition records that have been maintained under this access. So now we go back and have a quick look at the access sequence customizing itself. This table is cross-client, which means that you might have different clients in one system, and any changes made here would be effective across all the clients in the system. So this is a typical access sequence. So we look at material rebate, and these are the two accesses under that. There's no exclusive indicator, which means that the system will search for all the records. Even if it finds one successful record, it will still go on to the next one and execute that step. So now we've seen the access sequence. We've seen how the access sequence is assigned to condition types, and we've seen how condition types make up the calculation schema, and then how the calculation schema is actually determined in the system. So this is a quick overview of the customizing settings behind pricing in MM. So let us now go back to the system and see how some of these elements of pricing work. So we try to create a purchase order. We go to Materials Management, Purchasing, Purchase Order, Create, Vendor Supplying Plant Known, and we enter our vendor. Need to go to Header Data and enter the purchase org and the company code. Enter the material, the quantity, and the plant. And let's see if pricing works. Well, we get an error saying net price must be greater than 0. The system has not been able to find any price. And if we look at how the system tries to determine the price, there's an analysis tab here. You see the base price, the basic gross price, has all these excesses, and the system hasn't been able to find a price in any of these. So let's now try to go back, exit this, and create a price, and then come back and see how the system then determines this price. The purchasing info record is part of master data. So we need to go to purchasing and then to master data, info record, create. So if you know this transaction, you can directly go here without stepping through the menu. So we'll now create a purchasing info record for our vendor and our material, and this is going to be relevant across all the plants, so we leave this field blank. So this is what the initial screen looks like. We need to go to this tab, purchasing organization data, and enter in our information here. Standard quantity 100, and price we want to put as 990. And if you try to save, the system will tell you that you still have some mandatory entries you need to fill in, and one of them is purchasing group. You press enter, save, and the system has successfully created this info record. So now we go back and try to create our purchase order. And we enter the same information as we did earlier. The same material, we'll put the same quantity and the same plant and press enter. And now we see that the system has achieved a price, and let's see where this price is coming from. So if we go back to analysis, go back to PB00, and this indicator tells you that this is the access where the system has obtained the price from. And clicking here will take you to the actual condition record. And see, the way the system works is that it tried this access and found the condition record missing. Then it tried this one, condition requirement not fulfilled, and so on till it found the one where it actually found a valid condition record. So we've had a look at how pricing works, how you do customizing for MM, how you create info record, and how you actually get that price in the system. Hope you enjoyed this session. See you again soon.